All right. So Alicia, take us back before real estate. I mean, what did life look like? What were you doing? And how did you find yourself in this industry?
Where do we start, David? So before real estate, we were certainly not working the hours that we're working now, but we're having so much more fun now too.
Well, and tell everyone real quick, I mean, what do you mean by the hours? Because not everyone knows where you are right now.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm in the future, and I'm talking to you from Australia, as you can tell by my accent, although some people often ask, are you New Zealander or English? And I'm like, no, I'm an Aussie. So I'm in Australia, and we've been doing real estate in the US now for just coming up 5 years, David. So it's been an interesting and wonderful and amazing ride. But prior to that, let me just go back and give you a little bit of the backstory. So myself and my partner, Matt, we're both from corporate backgrounds. So my background was in human resources, leadership development, organizational development. And so for the last decade before we went into business in the States, I had my own consulting practice. I was going into organizations and teaching leaders how to lead well and working with teams on communication and all of that people to people stuff, which I absolutely loved. The thing is, I still get that in real estate too, because of the networks and connections and, people that we're helping. My partner, Matt, has a technology background. He was in IT, transition, transformation, automation, all that fun tech stuff that I really know nothing about. I'm the people person. He's my tech guy. And we had a couple of properties here in Australia and just rental properties, and it was great. We both love the concept of real estate as an income stream and also as a hobby. It's something we both had a lot of interest in. But for those listening, David, and you might not even know this, David, the real estate market here in Australia is so polar opposite to what it is in the States. There are things that you can do with real estate in the US that you just simply cannot even fathom over here. So when we were looking at different ways to start to invest in real estate, we just started looking more globally rather than locally. And we landed on, funnily enough, the reason why we landed on it, as I said before to you, I've been doing public speaking for most of my career. And so I love going along and hearing other people speak. And I went to a conference where both Tony Robbins and Richard Branson were speaking. It was like this speak fest that was for 2 days. And all these other speakers from around the world had their little moment on stage to do their mini TED talk and promote their products. And I can't even remember the name of the person, but this one guy was up on stage and he was talking about this is going back like 6 years ago now. He was talking about real estate in the US and how the post bubble burst, how banks weren't helping people anymore. And so many communities were just, there was derelict houses on every street and people were genuinely needing help, and investors had an opportunity to not just go in and do some really cool stuff with real estate, but also genuinely help people. And I was like, oh, that sounds amazing. So I ran to the back of the room and signed us up for a course on how to do investing in the States, and came home and said to my partner, Matt, babe, I've just signed us up to do a course on investing in the US real estate. And he's like, you've done what? And I was like, yeah, it just sounded really interesting and really cool. I think we'd really like it. And he was like, oh my goodness, what have you done? Because it was a lot of money too. It was, I think it was about $6,000 for us to go and do this course. And that was a lot of money for us back then. Now when we make $6,000 on a deal, we're like, that's little. Where can we go? But
well, Alicia, let me stop you for just a second, because sometimes living stateside, we may take for granted some of the things that you can do with real estate here that you can't. So give us just a couple of examples. When you say you could do stuff elsewhere that in Australia you just couldn't, what were some of those limitations there in Australia that you found?
Oh, goodness. Where do I start? There's a whole bunch, but let me give you the main ones that prohibit us doing business over here like we do in the States. The first one is data. The access to data and information over here in Australia is like a tenth of the information that we can get in the US. In the US, we can find out what properties do you own? What mortgages do you have? What liens, back taxes? What's the history of the ownership of that property? Are there title issues? Are there survey? We can find out everything about you and your property, and it's all publicly available information. Over here, you're lucky to be able to find out someone's postal address. And that's about it. So the access to information and the privacy laws over here around information are really, I'm going to use two words here, David. They're protective, but they're also prohibitive. So I do like the fact that we live in a country that our privacy is so fiercely guarded and protected. But then from a business perspective, you it might not even just be real estate. It might be in any other business that you're in that you want to find out, demographic information and things about people. And it makes it pretty hard. So data was the first thing. The second thing that was really the most prohibitive is price point to market, so entry point to market. Where we live in Melbourne, Australia, it's a beautiful city. I don't know have you ever been over here, David?
I've not. It's one of the places that in the next 2 years I will be there, and New Zealand.
Get on a plane. We're coming out to we'll shout you lunch. You'll love Melbourne. It's a beautiful city. It's probably one of the most more European style cities in Australia. We're very much about food and wine and art and culture, and it's an amazing city. We're very lucky to live here now that we're out of lockdown too. But where we live, in this city, the average, when I say average, I'm talking average family home in a middle class suburb, not the affluent suburbs. Average house has gone just over $1 million. And to buy a piece of land in this city, people actually line up and camp overnight when there's new land that's released. People line up and camp to get first dibs on new releases of land. Now, that's not just an infill lot. Infill lots in a city, in the inner city, they go for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes even millions, depending upon what area you're in. Outer suburbs, you're looking at $200,000 to $300,000 for a basic piece of land that's in the outskirts of the city. So and the thing I will add, on any property that you purchase here, you pay stamp duty, and stamp duty can be anywhere between 10 to 30% of the total property cost. You pay that up front. So whatever you're buying, you need a lot of money to get in. You need a lot of money for tradespeople, because the cost of trades over here is about, I'm not kidding, 10 times as much as what we paid in the States. And so, yeah, there are people over here that do real estate investing. They do fix and flipping, but they've got the cash. And our first property that we bought in the US, David, it was a triplex. It was an old house that had been converted into 3 units. We paid $17,000 for it cash. And then we sold it. We sold it with 3 tenants in it for after rehabbing it and doing everything. We sold it for about $85,000. We made a small profit, but we also handed over a performing asset to somebody who was like, wow, thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
You just couldn't even dream of those numbers over here. So we're like,
well, thank you for pausing for a second to bring us into that, because like I said, I think a lot of times we take for granted some of these things. And I love even the 2 words that you used there, protective and prohibitive, because there really are those 2 warring dynamics at play when we think about privacy and data. So this is, about 6 years ago, I believe you said, you buy this course. What happens next?
I come home and we have a pretty serious conversation about what have you just done. and Matt, my partner, I love him to bits. And he turns around and says, okay, well, we're both interested in doing something different. We've always had a goal. Our goal has been, because we are nomadic people by heart, we love traveling. We don't have kids and we're both in our mid-40s. So put us on a plane and send us somewhere around the world and we're in our happy zone. So we can't wait for that to start again. But we had the conversation. We said, you know what, our goal has always been to put ourselves in a position business-wise that we can work from anywhere in the world. As long as we've got a laptop and on a phone, that was our goal. So we were already starting to explore, David, what type of business would allow us to do that. And he said, well, maybe this is it. So with his skeptical hat on, because he's the natural skeptic in our relationship, he said, let's go along and do the training. And if we get to lunchtime and it's pretty crappy, I could use other words there because us Aussies, we like to swear a bit, but I'll keep it clean, David.
Hey, I have an explicit tag. We use it often.
Okay, I won't. I'll be good. I'll be good. But so we went along to the course and he said, I'll give it to lunchtime. It was a 2-day course at that stage. I'll give it to lunchtime. And if it's bad, I'm out of there. And we got to lunchtime and I turned to him and I said, what do you think? He's like, this is the coolest stuff I've come across. My mind has just... And because he is a tech guy, he was all about how can we use this data? How can we get in and try things differently? Like all these strategies that people were telling us that you can do, we hadn't even heard of half of them. And so our minds were just blown. So from there, we literally did that first course. We signed up to do a second course to get some mentoring, as most people do. We then started our first fix and flip properties. All of them were awesome. We had so much fun. We actually went over and did the demo day with one of them and, filmed that. And it was like, look at us. We could be on HGTV and we're Aussies in the US flipping properties. We got a really good team on the ground over in Florida where we do most of our deals. And the rest is history, David. We ended up coming out of single family homes as an asset class right at that tipping point, because I do believe in business that you have to be very mindful of how your asset class and your strategy is performing and knowing when to pivot. And when it was at that stage where every second person wanted to get in the fix and flip game. Mm-hmm. I think HGTV's got a lot to say for that. Everyone wanted to be the next Chip and Joanna Gaines, which I love them. But we started to really notice the competitiveness of not just getting an off-market property, but getting and keeping good contractors. And our last property that we did, David, it had an overrun of about 8 months. And had a budget overrun that was huge, and we broke even. And it was about a year's worth of stress and effort because contractors kept leaving because people were literally coming to our site and saying, come and work for me, I'll pay you $5 extra. It's like, God. So our last one, we went, okay, market's shifted, we need to shift with it. So then we explored different asset classes, and now we work in land. And I've got to say, I'm so happy. Land as an asset class has been amazing. A lot of people go, land's not very sexy, but it is, and it can be.
Well, I like to remind people. We just recorded an episode recently with one of my commercial guys who focuses on mobile home parks here in the States, and really that's another asset class where the value is in the land, right? And when you think back through history, kingdoms were made primarily of land. That was the value, correct, right? You have the castle, but the resource that is, limited is the land, right? So you make this shift from single family into land. And I think that's very, very wise to just think about when the markets shift, you need to be agile enough as a business owner to pivot with it. And one of my mentors, obviously, inside of Keller Williams is Gary Keller, and Gary says all the time, change is inevitable, participation is optional.
And I love that.
We can either embrace the change or we can be left behind. And so you decide to embrace this change and go from single family into land. Before we get into really the remote nature and what you do from all the way over in Australia, I want to focus on land for a couple minutes. What was it that made you think land is where we want to be? This is where we're going to specialize. And what was your approach with land?
Yeah.
Are you developing raw land? What does it look like?
Sure. So first of all, our reasons for switching over to land as an asset class was we wanted an asset class that was going to give us more velocity for money, or velocity of our money. And that is when we're putting money into a deal, what's the turnaround time for us to get that money back? Secondary to that, David, it's what's the stress level to do it? For example, what types of things are we going to need to fix when it comes to that asset class? Now, we know with single family homes, there are a multitude of issues, particularly if you're fixing and flipping rather than wholesaling. It's a multitude of issues that you often uncover that you don't know. With land, it's pretty simple. The main issues that you come across, well, first of all, there's no toilets, there's no termites, there's no trash, there's no tenants. And if there is a tenant, they tend to be a pretty simple tenant. Like we had one a while ago where they had a fruit stand out the front and they were just leasing a small piece of the property. And we're like, you can stay, that's fine. The only other tenants that you get that might be unwanted is squatters, but again, that's pretty rare, depending upon where your land is. So we thought, okay, as an asset class, it's pretty simple. On face value, it doesn't have too many problems. When it does have problems, they're relatively easy to fix. So when I talk about problems with land, we're talking about survey or encroachment issues that often is just a conversation with the neighbor and you get that sorted. We're talking about subdividing, and there's some awesome specialists out there that now offer services to do that. We're talking about back taxes and liens. most counties that you work in are very, very interested to either have those paid off or negotiate with you to have them paid down or reduced if you're going to purchase the land. So getting rid of them is actually not that hard. Title issues when it comes to break of chain of title, when particularly with intergenerational land, when that's been passed down, we've got an awesome probate attorney on our team that can get those fixed pretty easily. So they're the main things that prohibit a land sale going through. But they're also pretty easy to fix and pretty easy to have a team on hand of experts that know how to do it. Other than that, we haven't uncovered a huge amount more of problems, other than things like we have had one issue where we were working on a parcel of land and then we found out it had a protected turtle on it. And it was like, okay, so we're just going to leave that one alone.
A protected turtle. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yep.
Yep. And actually, there's also a bird in Florida called a scrub jay. It's a tiny, tiny little bird, but it's protected. So if you have a scrub jay nest on your property, can't develop it.
Wow. That's very interesting. I actually grew up in this. I actually grew up in the state of Maine, where obviously there's a lot of undeveloped land and forests there. And I have heard of the bird thing. So I guess the turtle down in Florida is not, too shocking, but definitely something to be. All right. So those are the few problems. And so what are you doing with the land? Are you developing it? Are you prepping it? What are you doing with it?
We've got a bunch of different strategies, David. And I think it's important for anyone who's in a real estate investing business to have a multifaceted strategy, because not every property or parcel will suit one strategy. So the strategies we have, David, some of them we buy and hold, because we can see in certain areas that there's a lot of development, a lot of builders in the area, lots of things going on. So based upon our sales trend and our analysis and our comps, we're going to hold that one ourselves, because we see in maybe 12 months time, that might be ripe for positioning to, when all the other houses around it are built, perfect time to sell. We buy and flip. So for a lot of probably around 80% of our properties, David, we take them off the sellers, and it's normally sellers that do not want their properties. They've got those problems that I mentioned that need fixing. So we will get it from them from a reduced price with the promise that we're going to fix these issues for you so that you can be rid of the property. A lot of these sellers have tried to sell the property in the past themselves, either with a realtor or by themselves, and they hit that same roadblock every time. Where as soon as that problem comes up, people are like, all too hard, can't fix it. So as an investor, we're like, we will fix it for you, because if we can make you happy by you getting rid of the problem, and we can make a little bit of money on it by helping you, and we can then make the land usable for somebody else, everybody wins. So we will often wholesale the property and fix those problems, have a transaction between, buyer A and us, and seller A to us, and then buyer back to us. We'll be the middle person just fixing all the problems. And the third strategy we use, David, is seller financing. So we'll often buy the properties, and then there's a lot of hardworking, decent Americans out there that want to get back into the property game, but due to credit ratings and a whole bunch of different reasons from the market crash, they keep hitting all these boundaries and barriers. And we've got some awesome customers now who are under a seller finance agreement with us, where they're just paying us back the land each month. Some of them are already using the land to build a family home on or start a business on. And I love that. I absolutely love that, because that's about helping people get back into life and changing their life circumstances. So, and that means that on any month, we've got like $5,500. That doesn't sound like much, but we're starting to build the seller finance part of the business. Got like $5,500 passive income coming in every month. And we've got a company set up that manages that for us. So we don't even think about it. It just lands in our bank account. And just
That's
to
awesome.
know that these people are back in the real estate game, they've got ownership of property, that gives them a sense of self-worth, and they're starting to build stuff again, which is fantastic. So that's our main three strategies. The fourth one is sometimes we do get land and subdivide it. We've got 2 lots we're doing on that at the moment.
That's
our main strategy.
Fantastic. And I love the seller finance one, because often we talk about acquiring, single family homes, multifamily homes with seller financing, where we're approaching and having that seller finance to us. I love that with land, you're doing it in the reverse, and you're actually turning that on its head and saying, well, that is a passive income stream for us. That's fantastic. So, okay. You've built some an incredible business and multiple businesses, because you're also in the marketing space, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure. And you're doing it all from, it's like super early in the morning over where you are. It's afternoon where I am. Like you said at the beginning of our show, I get to live in the future through you. It's so cool. I'm glad that I'm going to make it to to Saturday morning.
Everything's okay on the 13th of November. Everything's okay. You're going to be fine.
Perfect. Awesome. I love it. And so, I think one of the biggest things probably going through my listener's head right now is, how in the world do you manage a real estate portfolio? Do you acquire properties? Do you communicate with sellers from from halfway around the globe? That's incredible, because I know in my network, I often get pushback even from people who are like, oh, I can't invest out of my town. Like me, I own property in different regions across our country, and they look at it and they're like, how in the world do you do that? So talk to us about, obviously there was the advantages of investing in the US versus Australia, but how did you overcome some of those objections that I'm sure you got when you said, we're going to invest stateside?
Yeah. Let me start first of all with mindset, David. I think mindset is everything, because the minute you tell yourself something can't be done, you'll believe it. But when we went and did our training, the people that we did some training with were really awesome at helping us to go, you know what, you can do this. And when people let their fingers do the walking on Google, there are so many different apps, organizations, people, processes, different things out there set up to help people to work remotely these days. And whether or not that's somebody setting up a company for you in another country, helping you to set up bank accounts, all these things. We did actually fly to the States to get a lot of things set up first, which was great, including some boots on the ground relationships that we wanted to put in place. But the first thing was mindset. Can we do this? And we're like, yep, we can. If we put our mind to it, you can do anything. And interestingly enough, when we said we were going to do that, there was quite a few people around us that were like, you guys have gone a little crazy, right? And so I think the second thing is, don't listen to other people, because there's so many people around us that will, like some of the customers you just described, I'm sure they've got friends and family that are trying to give them the world's best advice by saying, stay local, stay where you can go and see the property. No, you don't need that. That's just a mindset that they've got. So listen to yourself, back yourself, and trust yourself would be my first thing. And we really had to focus on that to begin with and shut out some of the noise. But the second thing was we then got strategic. It was like, let's put a plan in place. Let's put a strategy on how many deals we want to do, where we want to do them, do the research on what kind of deals we want to do. So to begin with, that was single family homes. Then what boots on the ground do we need? Okay, so we're going to need a realtor. We're going to need a probate attorney. We're going to need a real estate attorney. By the way, the realtor on our team, quick shout out, Michael Cassidy from Keller Williams in Jacksonville. He is awesome. He's been on our team since day one. Absolute superstar.
Woohoo! I like
we're
that.
going to need a title company. We're going to need a mobile notary if that's ever needed. We're going to need bank accounts. We're going to need this. So we made a list of all the things that we needed, and then we just got going. Funnily enough, all of that was actually really easy. There really wasn't a huge amount of barriers in the way. The only major barrier was, at the time, signing up a bank account, you had to physically be there to do it. Now you can actually sign up bank accounts online. So when we flew over for one of our visits, so pre-COVID, David, we were actually spending about 6 months of the year in the States. We've got fantastic friends and networks over there now. We were part of a mastermind group that we met some incredible people who we now call family. And so we spend a fair amount of time over there. So our visas allow us to go over for 3 months at a time and then come back. So we were kind of, going back and forth. And whenever we were over there, it was always a chance just to put some more relationships in place, go and check on our team in Florida and do all of that. Secondary to that, when we got to that tipping point, David, where we had enough deals in our pipeline and we had enough experience now that I was like, okay, we need to now move out from me working in the business to working on the business. And at that tipping point, we then put a team in place. So we've got 3 full-time customer service people in the Philippines. They are amazing. I love them all dearly. And they've all been with us now for over 2 years, and they work US hours. So we're now, whenever a seller calls through after getting an offer from us or wanting to talk about their property, or a buyer comes through where they've seen one of our properties advertised, my team now does the entire end-to-end process, conversation, negotiation, contract management. I've trained them up to do everything. I'm more of a leader. And I'm, as soon as I'm done with you, I've actually got my call with them. I have a call with them every day, and we talk about all of our deals, what's happening. We look in our CRM and all of our reports, and managing via good systems and processes is definitely important. And that's where we've gotten to now. So not only have I got a land business that's almost running itself, I hardly ever have to speak to a seller or a buyer these days. I'm more speaking to our collective team, which is my people in the Philippines, my boots on the ground people in Florida. So regular conversations with our title company, our attorneys, our realtor. So I'm sort of managing that and letting the processes and the systems run things with the people. So that's been awesome.
So let me ask you then about systems and processes. Are you the type of person who you developed all of your systems and processes from scratch, or did you piggyback on programs, systems, processes that you maybe either learned through the course or your mastermind or whatever? Were these already developed, or are you a start from scratch, create your own recipe type of entrepreneur?
Yeah, so it's I would say 90% is start from scratch, because remember, my fiance partner, he's a tech guy.
Those engineers.
Yeah, I know. So he will see a system or process out there and go, that's not good enough, I can tweak that. Or I like that, but I'm going to change this about it. So I guess with our CRM, we use a CRM called Fresh Sales, which when we did some research was one of the best ones out there that we could A, customize to how we wanted, but B, was a smart enough system and a big enough system to be able to handle the amount of data that we have in it. Because we're doing like 10 to 20,000 offers a month, and have anywhere in our pipeline from 25 to 35 deals at any point in time. And, somewhere between 5 to 15 in closing at any point in time. So that the pipeline is busy. And so we needed a system that could handle how we wanted to run our business, not just what we wanted in it. Secondary to that, and I guess this probably leads us into our marketing business nicely, David, what a lot of the educators out there taught us was some good basics, how to go and pull a list from a county, how to hire a virtual assistant to go and scrub your list, how to pull a good letter together and get it mailed out, and that was about it. And so when we sat back and looked at our business model and our marketing model, first of all, we were like, that's really inefficient. But knowing what we know about business, marketing is not just using one method and hoping that that's going to convert everybody. It just doesn't. You're dealing with humans, Yep. Humans behave in different ways and respond to different things at different times. So we really sat back and thought, okay, from our acquisitions perspective, how do we keep our pipeline always having deals in it and automate most of that? So we then created a real estate investing marketing company, just by accident, because we were creating something for ourselves. Yeah. And that's called Supercharged Offers. And we didn't intend for it to become a business. We just said, how do we create a system that we've got access to all the right data? So we actually have our own database that's got more than 160 million properties, all the owner attributes, all the businesses across the US. So that's more than 65 million companies. And we mine that data to find exactly what we need, because a lot of data companies out there weren't giving us what we need. So we went, we'll go build our own. So we wanted to automate everything, David, from the data through to the direct mail. So we're mailing weekly, tracking that mail so we can see that our mail is going to where it needed to. Whilst we're doing the direct mail, also that's offline, also doing the online strategies, which is targeting whoever we're sending mail to, targeting them with Google, Facebook, and Instagram ads, doing follow-up and retargeting online, having an online system that if they did go to our Facebook page or our website, they could start to interact with us, and then we attach cookies and keep retargeting, and make it a relationship-based system. So putting them through a sales funnel that was about things that are of value to our seller. Whereas a lot of people have websites out there that say, it's got cash splashed all over it, and it's, get cash today. Yes, that's what your seller wants, but they also want to be able to trust you. And I always say that we are not in a real estate business, we're actually in a relationship business. We need to be seen as credible and trustworthy and human. And that's where it starts. So we now, what we built for our own business, we showed it to a few of our friends, and they're like, oh, can you do that for us? So, because we've got designers, developers, content writers, we've got a whole team of people now in our real estate marketing business that now build out some pretty awesome marketing and systems and branding for our customers. And I'm really proud of it. So we've been able to help a lot of real estate investors not only grow their business, but, do it in a really professional, systematized way. And that's been awesome.
Super cool. And I love how the genesis for the business is there's a problem that we need to solve for ourselves. And once we create a valuable product, other people are just attracted to that, and it grows. And I couldn't agree more with you that whether you are a wholesaler, you are a buy, you're buying and holding multi-family complexes, whether you're just a real estate broker and you haven't actually invested in real estate yourself, you are in the relationship business, and it's about staying in touch with. And I love the way that you described your marketing. I mean, it sounds exactly the way that I teach agents how to do their own marketing, where you layer the approaches, right? If you're going to mail a piece of mail, then I say, if you're stateside, you should be knocking on that door. And then they should see your face 2 days later
up the phone
on Instagram.
Or something. Yeah.
Exactly. Don't just do a one-off approach. Layer these things.
Yep.
Exactly.
And then you would know then that the statistic is that marketing converts between 7 and 13 touches. It doesn't convert by people hearing from you and seeing you once and being like, yeah. And then I bring it back as well, David, to right place, right time, right message. It might be the right message and it might be the right place, but it might not be the right time for that seller. But in 2 months' time, they may have lost their job, going through a divorce, something's happened. So now it's right place, right time, right message. So farming your market and retargeting your market is so important. And there's so many real estate investors out there, and realtors, I might add, because I've dealt with a lot of realtors over my time too. That just don't think through that lens. And it's like, well, pipeline management's all about that. Marketing.
So many people get into the real estate game and they think it is just HGTV, where I'm just going to go show people around. They don't realize that it is a lead generation and lead follow-up game. It's all about generate the leads, follow up with the leads, then you get to close the leads. Exactly.
Yep. And even to the point, when you nurture the leads and you've got the lead, love the lead is what I say, which is don't just get the lead and now just think that your system and process is going to work that person through. No, keep in touch with them, tell them what's going on, manage expectations, over deliver, do all of those things, because at the end of the day, your brand is as good as how you operate.
Yeah. So Alicia, I'd love for you to actually, if you could, bring us through, an entire transaction, maybe like how it comes together being remote from acquiring the data all the way through. Could you walk us through that, what that process looks like for you? Sure.
No problems. Acquiring the data is easy. We've got our own database. So I literally say to my team, guys, we're targeting this area now. So let's just say we're targeting Duval County, Florida, because that's where we started. So I'll go there. So here's our property attributes. Here's our owner attributes. Go and download the data. My team then gets to work on cleansing that data. We actually cleanse our data with more than 75 steps, David, because we want our data to be so cleansed and so verified that when we're sending direct mail, which is the next stage, we want our delivery rate to be about 98 to 99%. 100% is also awesome too. And we have got that. There's no point in doing direct mail if 20% of your mail is going to come back as undeliverable. And people don't realize that, in order to achieve that, it's how much work you do with the data upfront to get that data verified, cleansed, all of that. So we do the data, we then do direct mail. Whilst direct mail is going out, we're pushing ads straight away. So as soon as that mail's been printed, ads are going. Google ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, they're all being targeted. And they're specifically targeting the people we're mailing. So if we're mailing 5,000 people that week, those 5,000 leads are uploaded into our system and they're starting to get ads pushed to them straight away. Now, that's if they have some kind of social profile, and most people do these days. So we're pushing ads. Then they respond to our letter. They might respond to us via email, phone call, or if we're sending out blind offers, we also put a USPS business reply envelope in. Most of our customers, if the offer is spot on, they literally sign it, send it back. All of those interactions go straight back to my team that I mentioned. My team knows exactly what to do if a phone call comes through, email comes through, or a contract comes back. There's steps that we've outlined in our CRM about what they need to do next. So if the
can I stop you for just a second?
Yeah.
Super selfish and elementary question. However, who's the boots on the ground who's going and picking up your mail? Or is that going back to Australia?
There isn't one. No, there isn't one. We've got a mail house in the US, so we've got a relationship with a mail house that is absolutely fantastic. And the reason why we've got this awesome mail house too, with Supercharged Offers, we're doing all of our customers' mail for them. So we're sending out hundreds of thousands of pieces of mail a month. So we just upload our list to our mail house and we're like, mail house, send out the list. So they do all of our printing, mailing, they do the interaction and integration with USPS for us. That's all set up and automated. We don't do anything from Australia, David. It's everything is done over there. So we send out the mail is tracked, mail comes back, contracts come back. We then get to the stage that we either accept the contract, like we run our numbers, we accept the contract, or we want to negotiate. So then my team runs comps. We go back and forth with our seller until we've landed on a number. So with the contracts that we accept, we then go into due diligence. Due diligence is now where we're good on the numbers. Let's now look, is the property buildable? Are there any restrictions? Is there anything that needs fixing? Let's talk to the seller about stuff like chain of title, probate. So we can then go back and check all of those things. That will either kick off another negotiation, depending upon what it is we need to fix, or if there's enough spread in the deal, we say, yep, we now see these problems. We've got enough spread in our profit perhaps to be able to fix them. We'll do it for you, Mr. Seller. Then our team gets on and starts doing that. So whether or not we need to put it into our probate attorney or anything like that, we get started on fixing those problems. At the same time that we're doing that, we have it in our contracts for the ones that we might potentially wholesale. We have it in the contract that we have the right to market the property whilst we're in closing. So my team will then get to work on doing that deeper due diligence, writing the content for the ad, getting the photos done for the property. We've got people on our team that can do that. For our larger, more expensive properties, we actually get somebody just on Yelp. We just go out to Yelp and ask for a quote for a licensed drone person to go out to our property and do some drone videos, show us around our property and see what's going on. And again, people can do that in the States, right? Just reach out to someone and say, hey, can you go check out my property that's 1,000 miles away and do a drone video for me and show me the boundaries? Loads of people out there you can use. So we get that, we advertise it. We advertise that on land.com, which goes to Land and Farm, Lands of America, and Landwatch. We syndicate it with our realtor. So we can put it on MLS, and we put it on Facebook sometimes as well. We put it out there and we start to field our buyer calls. And when we're doing a double close, we're very transparent with both of our sellers and our buyers that some of our properties we do double close, where we're using the buyer funds to pay for the seller. But as long as we're upfront and transparent, we're managing conversations, nobody ever minds with that, because we're helping the seller, getting rid of their problems. They want the property gone and they just want their cash. We're then helping the buyer to give them a property that is marketable, has a title that is clear and clean, and they can get on and do something with it. So everybody wins. If it's a seller finance deal, at closing, we will purchase the property. And then with our new buyer who's under seller finance, we'll set that up with a loan mortgage company that's based in LA. They're called Del Toro. They're fantastic. And they then manage all of our loans for us. And that's the end-to-end process. The title company does all the paperwork. They send us all the paperwork. This is probably the only prohibitive thing. If we need to sign the paperwork, we have to go to an actual, they're called a solicitor here in Australia as opposed to an attorney. We have to go to a solicitor here to get them signed and notarized and then FedEx them back. And we went, that's too inefficient. So then we found a corporate resolution, which is just a one-page document that you can assign signing rights for particular properties over to someone. And so that's what we do. We assign a corporate resolution to someone on our team that we really trust. They get a small fee for doing our paperwork for us. Done.
I absolutely love how efficient, and even, I mean, if someone, I know processes in my company, A to Z, but if someone had asked me to just lay it out, I mean, we'd be here for an hour and a half with me fumbling around. Like, it goes here, here, here. I mean, you clearly are very gifted in this area. And the reason I wanted you to do that is that I wanted our listeners to just hear how, you know, every detail, once you have it figured out and you lay it out in a manner and a process that makes sense, is executable from wherever you are. And then it gets back to your very first, I mean, the dream that you had at the outset with your partner of, how can I work from anywhere in the world? And everything you just laid out, you can do from anywhere. Yeah. It's fantastic.
Let me tell you, David, just to prove the point even more. So pre-COVID, we did a deal in the middle of the ocean in Croatia on a yacht, where we were transferring money to buy a property and closing on it. And we've done a deal from the ski slopes in France. So you can literally do a deal from anywhere.
So good. I hope that you guys listening to this I hope your mind is blown right now, and I hope it's causing you to think bigger than you've ever thought before, because clearly Alicia has, and it's led to just massive results. Now, going through this whole process, and I know you know, you've been so gracious with your time to this point, but I want to ask you, like, has there been any like failure along the way? Have you fallen and skun your knee? You know, what type of doubts have you had? Tell us about that.
Oh goodness. I don't think any entrepreneur doesn't get out of things scot-free, because that's just life, right? You know, you hit road bumps. We've had times where we were unable to sell any properties and we kept looking at our bank account going like this, and it's like, oh, so, you know, you have those freak out moments where your brain goes into scarcity mode, and that's normal, right? Because you're investing in your business at the same time that you're growing it. So, you know, unless you're willing to take those risks, then you're not going to have those moments where you're just like, ah! But those moments are also moments of growth, which is, okay, we're here. How do we get out of it? Some of the other failures we've had, you know, we've purchased some properties that when we did our first level of due diligence seemed great. And then when we went down 10 layers deeper, there was some pretty major problems that cost us a fair amount of money to fix. But again, we learned so much in those times as well. We've also hired team members that were just the wrong fit for our team. And as soon as I realized that, it was like, okay, we've got to pull the plug, because you just cannot afford in this type of business to have people on your team that aren't of the same mindset, values, and ways of working that you want. And I can't stress that enough, how often people put up with bad service or bad resources, and they're too kind of shy to have the tough conversation, but I'm all up for that. So it's probably those things the most that have been the toughest, but they're nothing that we can't overcome, David. And I think, again, it's all mindset. We always look at a problem, even if it's a massive one, and we have had some massive ones. Even if it's a massive problem, you just need to pause and collect yourself for a second and go, okay, where do we start if we were to think about solution? What does that look like? Rather than staying in problem mode, what does solution mode look like? And let's just start from there.
Such good advice. I want to transition us into the last segment of our show, which is 3, 2, 1 action. It's the same 3 questions I ask every guest. You're on the hot seat now. You ready?
Go for it. I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right. So question number 1 is, who has had the single biggest impact on your business and why?
Single biggest impact on our business. Oh, that is a Tough one. I am actually going to call out Jack and Michelle Bosch from the Land Profit Generator Group. And it's only because that's where we started with our land investing, and we were part of their mastermind. And the reason I want to thank them is the people that they brought into the room. So their mastermind I think it maxed out at like 30 people. So it was quite an intimate group. There's now a handful of people from that group. There's 5 of them in particular that we now call family. That have been instrumental in helping us with our business. We've helped them. We've invested in each other's businesses. We've pushed each other's boundaries. And we absolutely love that. So there's some people in particular, and if they're listening to this, they'll know who they are. But we wouldn't have met them if it wasn't for Jack and Michelle. So I think them, first of all, but that led to the people that we met, and those people have been hugely instrumental. So, you know, I really say surround yourself with people that want to do great things and want to push the boundaries, because that will also push your own.
100% agree with that. Question number 2 is, what book has had the biggest influence on your business life and why?
There's so many. I'm turning around to my bookshelf here because there is so many. But one of them that really got us started in the marketing space was a book it's actually by a local guy here called Sabri Suby. So Sabri and then Suby, Sabri Suby. And he has a book called Sell Like Crazy. Now, funnily enough, it's actually not so much about sales. It is about the psychology of marketing and how you use marketing to really tap into the mindset of your audience. And once we read that, that was the start of Supercharged Offers, because we were like, we're coming at this all wrong. We're saying the wrong stuff to our audience. We're not in the shoes of our seller. And that was the main thing that then made us go, okay, let's change this. Let's see what we can do to up the ante here. And that book was the one that got us started.
Sell Like Crazy. I've not read it. I am going to go to Amazon and find that, and we'll link that up in the show notes. So the third and final question, as you know, this is the All In podcast, where we encourage our listeners to go out and take massive action on what they've learned from our stories, from our shows. So Alicia, if there was one piece of advice that you could give to anyone out there listening to this, one action step that they could take to go move the needle forward on their business, what would it be?
I think my one piece of advice that I would give is always, well, first of all, pause and assess how your business is functioning and where you are spending your time. The only way to do that is by starting to report on things, because I know a lot of real estate investors and a lot of realtors that are spending their time on non-revenue generating activities. They're doing data, they're cleansing lists, they're arranging mailing, they're not doing stuff that's actually getting them results. So really ask yourself, you know, what are you working in your business versus on your business? And is that generating you the results you want? If it's not, really ask yourself what you can outsource. And when I say outsource, I don't always mean to a person, because I think the first thing that people think about, David, is who can I give that to versus what system can I let run that for me? And then the part of that advice is trusting. You need to trust that if you are going to outsource it to someone else, that it is going to get done. It might not be done in the way that you want it done perfectly, but that's all about getting to know and working with the personal process that you're outsourcing it to. So that would be my main thing, to move the needle. Where are you spending your time? And is that time generating you all that you need? And if I can be so bold as to say in here, David, to the control freaks listening, this is also about letting go.
It totally is. And I say all the time, a mega agent. So, you know, on the brokerage side of the real estate business, a mega agent's entire career, the pinnacle of their success will be determined on their relationship with control. And as a consultant to our top agents, I say my life is made up of constantly just peeling open the hands of mega agents and saying, let go, let go, let go. And it goes for any industry. The more you let go and lead, the more success you can have. And you've been a tremendous example 100%. Of that. So I absolutely love all the value that you've brought today. It's unbelievable. And just to kind of piggyback and say one more thing, one of my closest friends in this business, Aaron Hodgson, I always forget if he's from New Zealand. He always gives me a hard time, or Australia. But anyway, he's the former CEO of Harkerts International. And Aaron says 95% of what an agent does or an investor does in their life is $0 productive. And it's just cutting those things that are not producing a result, like you said. So your advice comes with other great leaders' advice. And so thank you for sharing that. Hey,
you're welcome.
You've mentioned some amazing things. I know our listeners have learned so much. Where is the best place for our listeners to connect with you, Supercharged Offers, learn more about your businesses? Where can they find you?
Yep. So they can go to superchargedoffers.com. On there, we've got some free resources they can download. We've got a business growth plan on there because there's so many people we know that don't even have a strategy. We've got a really great ebook on there about using online and offline marketing together. All free. You can download those. Or just email me direct. So Alicia, it's spelled ALICIA at superchargedoffers.com. Give my team a call. They're more than happy to take a call. So 888-538-5478. Or they can find me on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for investing your time with us. I really appreciate you. I cannot wait to get out to Australia and share a meal and
let me know, David.
Melbourne.
We'll show you around.
All right. Awesome. And you'll have to come out to Scottsdale, Arizona sometime.
We've been to Scottsdale and I love it. So next time I'm back, I'll look you up.
Okay, we're doing it. All in listeners, thank you so much for spending time with us again. As always, go play all in.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode of the All In Podcast. We want to invite you to find all of today's resources from our show page at aipodcast.co. We also ask that you take just 1 minute to leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. This is how we grow and how we're able to bring you the best content each and every week. Now go play all in.